I'm from a nonprofit organization called Facing History and Ourselves. I came to Facing History 9 years ago as a librarian because I really believe in the work that we're doing. Facing History is a nonprofit organization, an educational and professional development organization. We work with educators to engage students in an examination of racism, prejudice, and anti-Semitism. By studying the historical development of the Holocaust and other examples of genocide, students make essential connections between history and the moral choices they confront in their own lives. Our organization was founded in 1976 in Brookline, Massachusetts, and we now work in 9 offices throughout the country, and also we have offices in Toronto and London. We have about 180 employees. The Holocaust is our primary case study, and we've also developed print and online resources to teach about the civil rights movement, the Armenian genocide, other difficult histories and works of literature, and also contemporary issues like bullying. Our main work is professional development for educators, mostly high school and middle school teachers. We also have public events featuring scholars, authors, Holocaust survivors, and others. We've been using video since our beginning in the late 70s to record our professional development and our public events, as well as documenting the use of Facing History's curriculum in classrooms. We need to preserve our history, and we also want to find new ways to use the footage that we have. We need to use audiovisual materials, photos in publicity and promotion. And we've recently become more involved in making documentaries, short documentaries for classroom use, featuring experts on our content areas. And so that has been another area where we're really increasing our use of video. This morning I'll talk about where we started the project, some of our goals, how we worked with consultants, how we chose a vendor, configuring our digital asset management system, rollout, training, and documentation for our staff, some of the lessons we learned, and where we are now. So let's go back 5 years. In terms of our collection management, we had video going back to the 70s, and some of it was on formats that go back to the 70s. We had open reel tape, we had U-matic, we had DB-cam and mini-DV, and the obsolete formats, we had stewarded the material, we'd taken care of it, but there was no access to the content at all. In the 90s, when we started using DB-cam and mini-DV, we cataloged the tapes in our library catalog system. And from about 2010 on, we were shooting to file. All of that was maintained in our video production department. We had no control of it through the library system. We had no good practices for backing up our camera tapes or file-based video. We didn't have best practices for the documentaries we were starting to create. And in terms of images, they were scattered throughout the organization on this person's desktop, that person's desktop, print images in boxes. From an access point of view, as I said, we had no access at all to the things that were in obsolete formats. Some of it we had migrated to DV-cam, so we could access it. But if someone wanted to watch it, we had to make a DVD for them and send it to them. We did have some VHS copies for access and DVD copies for access in the library. You could search the library catalog. For other things, you were really dependent on people's institutional memory to find materials, particularly our library director, Tracy O'Brien. And online, we were using video on our website, and we were using a combination of platforms. We were using YouTube, Vimeo, Google Video, which some of you may remember, and if you didn't take care of your things that were on Google Video, you lost them, and we did, unfortunately, have to recreate some materials that we had there. So 5 years ago, we received a large multi-year grant to update our content. Our print resource book was last published in 1984. So we had considerable updating to do with scholarship, but we also wanted to increase the use of multimedia on our website, especially video, really make our content fresher and more accessible for today. We needed a better platform for those video resources, and also as part of this project, we were rebuilding our website using Drupal. We started to look at digitizing our material and quickly realized that we needed a digital asset management system to be able to achieve what we needed to achieve. We wanted the staff to have direct access to video content and images. So no one needed to make a DVD for them to see it. You didn't have to figure out who had that photo from an event and get it from them. We wanted to have easier access to cataloging the materials. We did not intend this tool to be public. It really is for our staff, and the material that we want to make public, we push to the website. We wanted to facilitate reuse of our material, so staff people could incorporate it in new teaching tools, for example, or promotional materials, use it to develop an online course. We knew we needed better backup and archiving, and we also knew that there would be more opportunities. If we had an organization-wide system, we would discover many more uses for it for other projects. For example, once all of our marketing photos were available to everyone, anyone needing to make a brochure might be able to choose a good photo and use it in their brochure. So as we began our project, we put together a cross-departmental team. As I said, I'm a librarian. I was working in the library. I needed to have the input of people in development, people who work with teachers, IT, all the different, the people who make our publications. Everyone needed to be involved in figuring what we needed to, what our goals were with the project, so that it really would be useful beyond the immediate needs that the project grew out of. We quickly realized that as librarians, we didn't have enough expertise to do this, and we were very fortunate to find Audiovisual Preservation Solutions, met them at an EMEA conference 5 years ago, and realized that they had the expertise that we didn't have in-house. We knew how to do library work. Our video team was very creative, but they weren't strong on archiving. Our IT department wasn't familiar with video issues, so AV Preserve was really a tremendous boost to us. They brought us expertise in technical aspects, like how are we going to digitize all of this stuff? How are we going to get through the process of figuring out what we need and developing an RFP, selecting a vendor? We needed to configure a system, we needed to build a taxonomy, and all of those were areas that AV Preserve could really help us. Also, coming in as outsiders, they could look at the whole organization and take an org-wide perspective that was more difficult for insiders to do. So they came and interviewed people throughout the organization and developed 10 use cases of different kinds of projects that we wanted to do. And just to give you an example of the detail they went to, this is the beginning of one of the use cases. So they analyzed all the steps we would need to do and what it was we wanted to do and who would be involved in it. And they put together a list of functional requirements and what use cases those were used in, and compiled this all into a massive document, which we then sent out looking for people to do the project for us. So we actually had 10 proposals. This was in 2012. We had 10 proposals, and we asked 3 companies to demo for us. And in talking with the vendors, the important things for us were who could meet our budgets and our needs, whose system was customizable for our particular requirements, since we're not like a university archive and we're not like a museum, we're a different kind of organization. It was also really important for us to find someone who understood the kind of work that we're doing and someone with whom we felt we had a good rapport. When we met with Karl and his team from Orange Logic, we met by phone. We felt that they understood the work that we were doing. They had an attitude of, we can make this work for you, our system is flexible, and we can work with you. That was really important to us. Also at the time, if you think back 5 years, they were offering a cloud-based system. And not everyone we talked with had a cloud-based system. At that time, some of the systems required you to have a client installed on your computer, and since we were going to be using this throughout the organization, we needed someone who was more advanced than that. So we chose Orange Logic and their Cortex solution for our digital asset management system. Then we started to face configuration. What were the challenges that we had in getting all of our material organized? While we were selecting a vendor for the dam, we were digitizing about 2,000 videotapes to creating digital files from them. We weren't coming from another system, so we had to figure out from scratch how we were going to organize everything. And that meant Orange Logic had to understand what kind of material we had, and we had to understand how it would be accessible through a system. So a lot of time went into figuring out how to get things organized so that when we ingested them, part of the work would already be done. We, in the meantime, had developed a taxonomy so we could categorize what kind of asset it was and which regional office did it come from, who was in it and what was their role, a variety of metadata that was important for us. We spent a lot of time on the edit screens for the assets and the search screens. What fields did we need to look for? How did the screens need to look so that they would be useful, not only to us as librarians who were very familiar with doing this kind of work, but we were going to be asking people in our regional offices, let's say, where they had a public event in Chicago, and someone in the Chicago office who knew the people was going to have to do some of the metadata for the event. So we wanted it to be user-friendly for them. We had to understand how permissions work. So being new to this, we needed to understand not only who can see what, but also who can do what, and to learn that who can see what is configured on the assets, and who can do what is configured on the people. And if somebody can't do something, where is the problem? What kind of permission is the problem? So that we spent considerable time working through that. Cortex has a sophisticated way of handling workflows so that you can assign something to a person, and once they've done their job, it's marked as done, and it can go on to the next person to do their job. And this was very attractive to us, and then we discovered how bogged down we got in trying to configure that, and Karl finally said, just get your assets in there and we'll worry about the rest later, which was very helpful to us. The material that had been in the library catalog had actually a lot of existing metadata. We had MARC records, which is the library cataloging standard, for a lot of material, but it wasn't the same as the metadata that was in Cortex. So how do you translate those library fields of subject headings and publishers and added authors and all of those things into the material that we were going to need in Cortex? And finally, this system was going to have to integrate with other platforms. We were we were using Brightcove as a streaming video platform, and our Drupal website. So we wanted to be able to put the video into Cortex, push it with some metadata to Brightcove, and serve it from Brightcove to our website with the metadata going along with it. Just an example of some of the fields. I know this is teeny tiny. Senator Barack Obama spoke at an event for us in Chicago before he was president. And so we had video of that event, and we could record a description and what project was this from and when was it, and keywords and names and dates and all of that kind of metadata we were able to translate into Cortex. When it came time to roll out the project, we wanted to whet people's appetites but not promise too much at once. So we did some things like showing clips of old classroom footage at an all-staff meeting. So someone could see a classroom from 1979 that literally no one had been able to watch for decades because it was on open reel video. We had a contest to name our dam, because we didn't want to just call it the dam. And when we chose the name The Trove, everyone immediately adopted it. So look for it in the Trove, it's in the Trove, is it in the Trove became the way everyone spoke of it right away. We needed to develop documentation, and this was another area where AV Preserve was really helpful to us. We wanted to be able to show people step by step. So first we showed people how to search for assets and how to share through a lightbox. And we created this kind of detailed documentation so anyone in the organization would be able to do something like share assets in a lightbox. And we also needed to create user instructions. So for example, if we hold a benefit dinner in Chicago, someone is creating video footage, that needs to be uploaded. Someone is taking photos, those need to be uploaded. Who's going to put the metadata on those things? The video department's going to make a clip. Who's responsible for writing the descriptions, and so on and so on. So we had to work out detailed instructions for all the different players of who was going to do things. So this involved bringing people from the organization together and figuring out actually what do you do and what do we need to do. We rolled out features over time. So when we started, people could search, they could share, but we didn't introduce at that time things like download. If you want to request to download something, how do you do that? So that came later. More complex uploading of assets. If you had a lot of metadata already for those assets, we brought that in later. And very important was we needed to develop documentation of how this whole system works and who's responsible for what, who makes decisions, and just put on paper where everything is and what everything is. So our system was finally up and running. And just to show you a couple of examples, this is a search for everything from 2015. And you can see that we've got some videos here on the top, a couple of videos. We've got these square boxes. Those are folders that have content in them. Everything is organized into folders. We have photos, and over here we've got facets so you can further refine the material you're looking for. Here's another example of the details of an asset. This is a photograph of Rena Finder, who survived the Holocaust. She was on Schindler's List. And she spoke at the United Nations with Steven Spielberg, the creator of the film, about Oskar Schindler's List, that made public how one person was able to save a lot of people in the Holocaust. They spoke at the UN on Holocaust Remembrance Day in January of 2014, and I thought it would be appropriate to show that because actually this evening and tomorrow is Yom HaShoah, Holocaust Memorial Day, which is something that is certainly something that our organization is very much involved in. Lessons that we learned. First of all, we learned that it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of time to do it right. Things like organizing files before you know there's a system, figuring out the best ways to do things as you're just trying to learn what your system is. Cortex is very flexible, and there are a lot of ways to customize it. So when you customize things, it takes a long time. You have to realize that you can't do everything, and that was part of our decision about postponing adopting the workflow feature, because we couldn't manage everything at once. We had to cultivate organizational buy-in. This was really important. We were bringing something new into the organization, and we wanted everybody to be able to use it, but more importantly, we wanted the organization to really appreciate the value that it had. So from the beginning, we were navigating the politics of the organization, and that included things like people's jobs change when suddenly they have to provide metadata on something where previously they would just, we want a web clip. And maybe they'll tell you what it's about, and someone else will write a little bit about it. Somebody out there in Memphis has to describe what's in there and identify the people. There was a question before about how do you get people to do what you need them to do. If their supervisor doesn't think it's important, they're not going to do it. So, and we didn't have we're not their supervisor. So there were changes in the organizational culture that had to come about. We had to manage priorities and expectations. So not only did we have to manage the expectations of our clients, meaning our staff, we had to understand the expectations and priorities of our vendor. If we didn't know the timeline that they were working on something, we couldn't accurately reflect that to our staff. So we got better at that in both directions as we went along. And one of the key things that we really discovered is it's really hard to know what you don't know. When you're inexperienced, there's a certain blindness that goes with going into a project like this with no experience. And if something isn't working right, you don't know, is it a bug? Are we doing it wrong? Do we not understand how it's configured? So for example, if someone is supposed to be able to edit an asset and they can't, there were a lot of steps to figuring out how do we learn where the problem really is if we're just trying to understand our system. So now we are finishing up that 5-year grant and incorporating the Trove into our regular workflow. And looking at all the backlogs we have, there are many categories of materials that we need to deal with. Most of what we have uploaded is actually findable in some way, which wasn't the case in the beginning, but there's much more for us to bring in. And our partnership with Orange Logic has really been very successful. We've enjoyed and continue to enjoy working with the Orange Logic team. But there have been changes to the product over the couple of years that we've been using it. Some of the things that we had to rely on them to configure, like what goes where on the details of an asset details screen. We need to create more keywords or a new kind of keyword and put that on the details screen. We can now do those things ourselves, and the product has evolved so that we can do that, and there are more things coming down the line. And one thing that we've learned with working with Orange Logic is if there's something that we need to do, their attitude is, yes, we can do that. We'll figure out how to make that work. So Chris mentioned that this has transformed our organization. And it has transformed our organization. We now have most of our intellectual property centralized. Not everything. Sometimes someone finds a box of stuff, or the Memphis office is moving, and when they are moving, you discover that they have a whole collection of videotapes that no one knew they had. So, but we now have the way to make that available. We have secure, redundant storage. All our storage is in the cloud with 2 different cloud systems, so we have secure backup. We've tremendously increased collaboration throughout the organization. For things like when we create a video, we can share rough cuts with people so people can review rough cuts. When we have an event, we can share video from an event or share the photos from an event very quickly. Our freshest marketing photos are all in a particular area in the Trove, so that anyone who needs a marketing photo knows exactly where to go to find something, and they can see that they can choose that it has students and the students are reading or whatever. Through metadata they can find particular things. They can choose materials collaboratively to put together an online course. We want this photo, this video, these different things. There's a way to share those materials so that people can make decisions together. We have rapid access to new content. If we have an event in San Francisco, that video can be uploaded and everybody can be reviewing it the next morning in Boston. We are better able to manage licensed content. So as we have started creating more of these short documentaries, there's often a scholar interview and it's voice over images. All those images have to come from somewhere, and if we have licensed rights to them, we need to manage what rights we have. Can we use it on the website? Can we use it in a video? Can we use it in print? And we're able to manage that. Our platform integration is working well. We are, in fact, we have everything in the Trove, and we're pushing it to Bright Cove and serving it to the website. That's working very well with video, and we're hoping to be able to do it with images as well. We're not yet doing that with images. We're doing all kinds of content sharing for repurposing. For example, our 40th anniversary is coming up. We're collecting all various things to create a retrospective video with vignettes over our past year, our 40-year history. So we have been very successful with organization-wide implementation, and we don't know how we could have done without this. So that's where we are. We're very, very pleased with where we have come with Orange Logic. And now Karl's turn.
Karl, come on up. I'll just load your presentation, and we'll do Q&A after Karl talks. Thank you, Eva. That was great.
Hello, everyone. So I'm Karl Facredyn. I'm the founder and CEO of Orange Logic. I wanted to thank Eva for being so nice to us. She obviously didn't tell you all the stories. What I would like to do today is discuss the project, but from a vendor's perspective. So very briefly, Orange Logic, we've been in operations for about 15 years. We are based in California, where our headquarters are. We also have offices in Austin, Oxford, in the UK, and Montpellier, France. In France, we have mainly the research being done in France. And in California, we do customer support. In case you haven't noticed, I'm French. As a company, we made a decision at the beginning to not have any sales nor marketing. And our idea was to have a product that is so good that it should sell itself. In 2016, we decided to start, we felt we reached a level where we can start very slowly to approach people to sell our products. Today, our customers include, that we have been accumulating over the years. We have about 50 clients in about 500 different offices. And so we work with the United Nations. We work with multiple branches of the United Nations. Greenpeace, all offices of Greenpeace in the world. BBC, they manage their assets using Cortex. Reuters, which is, as you know, the largest press agency in the world. And they distribute all their images and graphics through Cortex. Boeing Images, we work with many departments. They handle their corporate archives. And we also have, as clients, all the French national museums. So every time you see something that came from France, an art piece, it probably went through our system. And also, recently we started working with an internet company. For example, Airbnb manages their corporate archives using Cortex. What Eva went over today, even though they had challenges, I would say it's a fairly classical story. Actually, they're probably, Facing History is probably on the high end of successful for rolling out a dam. We've had many, especially given the fact that they were doing this for the first time. And we'll describe why later they were so successful. The objective of this presentation is to give you a vendor's perspective on the challenges that our customers experience. If I was doing a demo of our software, I would say, do you have any question? But I only have 10 minutes. So as a vendor, we see two types of challenges. The one that we have control over and the external factors that we can't do anything about, except maybe just influence them a little bit. The biggest challenge that people, consultants and potential customers fear is the missing functionality. There's that concern that they will buy a software that will not do what they want. So our approach to this as a company is to never say no to any sensible request. So if a customer asks for something, it makes sense, we just say yes. And we never ask them to pay for it. So this is double-edged sword, obviously, because it gives us a tremendous amount of work, but it allows us to grow very quickly the functional footprint of our application. It allows Cortex, our software, to grow very quickly. And since 2013, when we started rolling out with Facing History, we have invested $6.3 million in development of our newest version, which is Cortex 6. What we also like to do is cross-pollinate. So these are the only colors you would see today in my slide. So we have different customers in different industries, and they have very different needs. For example, media agencies are all about speed and being able to do data entry as quickly as possible because they have thousands of new assets every day. And NGOs are about communicating internally very well because they have 100+ offices. So what we do is that we develop modules specifically for each one of those industries and others. And then when we go back to the other industries, we tell them, you never asked for this, but wouldn't you like to have this and that? And often, not always, they want it. The next big category of challenges that our clients see are defects. So Cortex is supposed to do something, it doesn't do it. Invariably, many of the bugs, by the way, are very benign. So people see those bugs and they're like, yeah, bug. So we'll just report it. But some of them create a tremendous amount of confusion and time loss. What Eva was telling you earlier about the permission and how difficult it was for them to put together their permission system, what she was too nice to say is that there was defect in our permission engine we had just rolled out. And when they were permissioning things to people, they could not see it. And they were Facing History was working very hard to figure out why the system, things are not happening the way they should. And it turned out that they did their job right. We made mistakes in the way it was configured. So what do we do for this as a company? We develop in a method called test-driven development. And it's a method that's used typically in banking and defense, where developers don't write the code to do things. they first write the tests to make sure that whatever code they're going to write is going to work. It's going to work well. We started doing this about 12 years ago, as I said, when mainly it was a defense thing. Now it's much more used. So 60% of every single line of code we write as a company is to test the other 40% who actually do things for the dam. So today we have 38,000 automated tests that run every single night on the servers in California and France. And we do the equivalent of 9 months of human testing every night. And in spite of all of this, we still have defects that make it to the customers. The last area that is still under our control is the lack of usability. Once in a while, when facing history or customers who have very clear needs come to us and say, we need this and we need that, we sit around a table and we start inventing those modules, and we build them and we test them internally and we roll them out. We give them to our customers, and they can't use it because they just don't understand what it does, what the screens do. So our solution to this is to spend much more time building a user experience. So we have a dedicated team in Texas that does this. We are much more careful about semantics. The different industries have different words for the same thing. In one industry, it's called document, and the other one is called media. People call them assets, items. So we adapt in Cortex the semantics to the industry that we're working with. And we make it a point to redesign our interface every 3 and 4 years to build on all the knowledge we've had over the past 4 years. Very quickly, the external factors, it's the skill and resource of the organization. And in this scenario, we're very lucky with Facing History because Eva and her team were giving us 100%, not us, we're giving the project 100% of their time. But we have a very interesting case study in Australia where we had 2 competitors that approached us almost at the same time. And they were both in the media both media news companies. They were in the same city, roughly the same size, and one of them was part of a bigger team, and they were well organized. The other one was much less structured, a little chaotic, etc. And it took us almost 4 times with the exact same product to roll out one company versus the other. And I'll let you decide which one of the 2 felt that we were not doing very good. So now what we do is that before we sign an agreement with our customers, we make sure that they allocate the proper resources to the project that they're going to be working on. Another, what I would say probably the most important factor in delaying projects is our ability to import the data from their previous dam system. So we have, for example, we have a company in Switzerland that used to have a system before. It was a very good system. It was a Swiss system. It was a good dam system. And when they exported the information to Cortex, we did it once. And we were all shocked by how easy it was. With other companies, unfortunately, with other systems that are more loose, that are not structured and not organized, or where people have assets all over their company, we have to go through multiple cycles of import until we get it right. I'm going to speed up a little bit. Integration with other vendor is our other obstacle. It used to be worse than it is now. Now there's a standard that is emerging, which is most vendors now use a protocol called REST API, and it becomes a lot easier for us to exchange. For example, when we tried to integrate with Brightcove for facing history, they were using a REST API, but it felt very immature at this time. And what we initially thought would take us 2 weeks ended up taking more than 2 months to get it to work perfectly. Thank you.
Questions?
And could you, just as a reminder, state your name and where you're from, please?
Hello, Joel Parham, 20th Century Fox. This is a question for Eva. You mentioned product changes and upgrades to Cortex.
Yes.
I'm curious if you can go into about what setbacks you experienced when there were upgrades.
Upgrades required a lot of testing. I have to say that there were times when we found bugs that we thought, gee, why are we finding this bug? But we were very thorough in our testing, and required us to learn new things and then to develop training for people on if something was going to be, we were going to need to do something differently. So I wouldn't say that we had real challenges in adapting to new upgrades. I know the new one that's coming is going to make things significantly different. But Karl has promised that we're going to roll it out over time, so we won't need to learn everything at once.
And we always keep our promises.
Hi, it's Andrea. So it's really interesting, Karl. I mean, obviously you've moved a lot of digital asset management systems to yours, and so we're in that place in the history of digital asset management where now we're migrating a lot of data from one system to another. And I'm just wondering, have people adopting standards help? Or internal structured data helped? You talked about the Swiss system and the ease of doing that. What have been the keys for the good ones to move systems over?
So that system, which is, I won't name the company, but they're Swiss. So they built it with a Swiss mindset. It was very structured. When we looked at the data, we were in heaven. So other systems, I mean, because vendors have that balance that they have to strike between having a system that's very organized, which takes longer to implement. And this is why Eva and her team suffered so much, because we wanted the system to be very, very structured. Because in the long term, so it's a little more work to set up, but in the long term, it makes a huge difference in how you can deploy your assets. Versus vendors who make it very easy for you. It's very simple, and you just set up things any way you want, essentially. But as the company grows and as time goes by, things start breaking down because things are not clean anymore. And you have to spend a tremendous amount of energy going back in time and restructuring your assets. So, is that clear?
So
Is that answer your question?
Talking sort of more about maybe descriptive metadata and vocabulary too, like what people have used, whether or not they did, and sort of internal structuring of that versus using standards.
I think a standard will not make you structure. I mean, it will help. It will give you part of the way. But at the end of the day, is how much you enforce those standards in your system. So, because a lot of systems have standards, they just don't enforce them.
Many standards, yeah.
Yeah. So.
Thanks.
He's got you over there.
Hi guys, Nick from Chesapeake. We've actually spoken before in the past, and I have a question for both of you from both perspectives. So obviously Cortex is largely cloud-based. I understand, Karl, that sometimes you would accommodate on-prem deployments, but you're cloud forward, if you will, and I think you have kind of led the charge of DAM vendors or been on that leading edge. And there's obviously different economics involved, especially if you do have a cloud-based DAM and you are looking at putting your full resolution media, especially if you're a video customer, then of course you're looking at today's economics of cloud-based storage of potentially large data sets. I'm curious from both perspectives, how did the economics of a cloud-based approach, both on the data storage side and as the host platform, if you will, for the dam itself, affect your decision-making processes? Did it end up being more costly or less costly to take that approach? Do you see those dynamics changing? Because obviously cloud is eating more and more, day by day. I'm just kind of curious from both perspectives how that informed these decisions and processes that you are engaged in today.
Great question.
For us, we had an initial decision about whether to do this in-house or in the cloud, and our IT department was actually pretty happy to let us go in the cloud, and that really was the right decision for us, because I have to say Karl manages it all. It's not my headache.
Me personally.
Yes. That's a whole other kind of expertise that we didn't build in-house because we could get it out of house. And Karl was very diligent in researching what opportunities there were and what was it going to cost us and who could we get it from for a better price. And we appreciate that.
So when we spoke with Facing History's team, it took us about an hour to convince them to go on the cloud. Compared to other customers where it takes us about 6 months to convince them to go on the cloud. Now, we still host some of our customers in-house, but I can assure you that almost 100% of the time, the experience for them is not as good as when they're on the cloud. And we keep a very close eye on the price of storage, as you asked earlier. For example, Amazon, when we started working with Facing History, Amazon was billing in the neighborhood of $100-some per terabyte stored on S3. Today we are at $30, and for infrequent access we're at $12. We're almost at 1/10 the cost that it used to be in 2013. So we already discussed with Facing History that in the coming year or two, we'll migrate their services to Amazon S3, because I think it's probably one of the best deal out there.
Hi, Kara Van Malsen from AV Preserve, and I've had the privilege of working with this team, and they're all really great. And one of the things that comes up a lot when we're working with clients on a dam migration or implementation, more the case when it's a new resource for the organization, such as at Facing History. The client's like, okay, well, we're going to put like a half FTE on this. That should be good, right? And we're like, oh, no. How would you try to explain to a client or to anybody who's be implementing a dam what kind of resources really are required, particularly in terms of staff, and how do you sell them on that need? I mean, Karl, you mentioned the example of when you had the resources, it went 4 times faster. So, Eva, do you have any insights, or Karl, any other insights?
We were fortunate that we were grant funded, that this project fell in part under a grant. So I had been a full-time librarian, and I was building this on the side, and as we reached a certain point, this became my full-time job. And we now have 2 full-time people doing it. Some of the things that I was doing, other people who are already on staff are doing. So the total library staff increased from 3 to 4. It was something we had to sell the organization on because they think we're getting this automated, so it's going to be, we need less staff, and that certainly isn't true. Especially with the, for years we'll be working with the backlog. So yes, right up front you need to make you need to make the case that this is going to take a lot of effort. And now we have to integrate that into the organizational budget. So there are trade-offs in everything. So we're at the point where we need to make sure that the organization knows the value of what we've brought, so they will continue to support not only the staffing, but the infrastructure to do it.
And in the case of Facing History, what I didn't say earlier is that the reason that AV Preserve was able to come in and sort everything out before we even got into the scene, the fact that the workflows were all analyzed make a huge difference. I mean, I have no proof of this, but I would say that if AV Preserve didn't do the work they did before we got on the scene, it would have taken us at least 3 times as much time. And I would have even less hair than I do now. So I mean, for the customers that can afford it, we strongly recommend that they would get external help when they start a DAM project.
I totally agree. And Carol was great external help, the whole AV Preserve team.
So Rob Cardellano, congratulations to both of you. This is a great project, and you know, getting the cultural change to have people start using this sounds like some of the biggest challenges. What are still some challenges that you have? Do you still have data or content siloed for different reasons, and what's your roadmap to move forward? You mentioned the linkages between photography, content to the
Yes.
Drupal site. So what are the current challenges you have? Thanks.
We continue to have content siloed. For example, I mentioned that our video from 2010 we were shooting to files, and our video department was not strong in organizing and archiving that material. And then we had a staff person leave, and the library staff took on organizing that material. So it's still, that isn't even uploaded yet. We've been figuring out what's already in the DAM, what isn't in the DAM, and trying to manage all of that so that we don't upload material that's already there. So that's basically still siloed, and nobody can find that except the library staff. If someone says, I know that we had this event, and where's the footage from? We can find it, but we can't readily make it available yet. So there are cases like that. We have material that isn't digitized. We have hard copy photos that aren't digitized. So we have plenty of silos ahead of us.
Any other questions?
I'll ask a question. Hi, Seth Anderson from the MoMA Archives. You mentioned some of your work in sort of change management or establishing buy-in from other parts of the organization. Are there any specific challenges that you still face getting other departments or staff to use the system? And if so, can you maybe speak to potential solutions for that?
There are challenges. I think communication is a big thing, and something that we can learn to do better. I still will get an email forwarded to me that says, so-and-so wants to download a video and doesn't know how to do it, where we actually have a very simple system for people to do that. So we can do a better job of educating existing staff who might remember that we rolled this out, but they didn't need it then, and now they need it, and they need to learn new things. So that's one kind of example. We have people that we need to do some tagging, and they're too busy. They don't get to it, and that's a case where we need the organizational infrastructure so that I can go to my supervisor, who can go to her supervisor, who can talk to someone on the same level as she is and say, this is a priority. At a high level, people have to understand what the priority is. And they may come back to me and say, they're not going to do that. It's not going to happen, so figure out some other way to get it done. That's happened too.
All right, well, thank you both so much. That was really wonderful.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.